Hi, fellow plant people. Let's talk about Hoyas. Thank you for stopping by my channel today. It's going to be a fun one. I am going to share with you my Hoya collection, all 60 plus Hoyas that I have in my house. So a lot of us know what a Hoya is, but may not really know some of the background information about Hoya or where they necessarily come from. Certain plants, a lot of collectors will access that information and look that up because it's interesting, but it also helps us determine what the best care needs are for the plant. If you know where the plant is from naturally, in its natural habitat in the wild, you're better able to provide the appropriate care for it to help it thrive. Hoya is a genus of 200 to 300 species in the family Apocynaceae, and that is kind of a large family that includes other houseplants that are fairly popular, like Dischidia and also Ceropagia are in that family, but for this video's purposes, we are going to be looking at my Hoya. A lot of Hoya are native to regions around Asia, all over Asia, the Pacific Islands, and then also Australia. So that's kind of the general range where you can find Hoyas growing in the wild. I really started to enjoy collecting Hoya pretty quickly after I got my first one. Mainly because they are pretty easygoing in terms of care for the most part, and also I just really love their growth habit. A lot of them, they're epiphytic vining plants, which means that they do not grow on the ground in soil generally as a rule. They tend to grow up in the canopy, clinging to trees and branches and growing on other plants. And then they gain their moisture and their nutrients via the canopy environment. So we're going to get into my Hoya collection. I just don't know really the best way to segue. It just feels like maybe we should just jump right in because I have quite a few to show you. Okay, so now we are at the little station I have set up in my office area that has all my little plants on it. I kind of moved all those little plants that were like maybe 3 inches, 2.5 inches or smaller to one area so I could keep track of the watering a little bit easier. But I also have some of my plants here that I am giving a little bit more attention to because I may have just repotted them. So I have a lot of Hoyas on this table. Side note too, I'm going to make sure to post the natural habitat of each Hoya that I mention and feature on the video. I don't have them all in my brain, but I do have them on a spreadsheet because I like that information. I like knowing where they're from. So I will make sure that each plant has the name spelled out and also where they're from. Okay, living room, or it's actually my breakfast bar area. Right now I have a Hoya carnosa Crimson Queen. This is one of 2 queens that I have in my collection. This is the smaller one, but it's actually doing a little bit better than the larger one I have. It's some really awesome variegation on the leaves there. Moving down here, this is also a duplicate Hoya that I have. I have 2 Hoya multifloras, or these are also known as the shooting stars Hoya. These are more of an upright grower than some of the other epiphytic Hoya that I have in my collection. These tend to grow they're more of an understory Hoya than others. So they'll grow lower to the ground and they'll grow upright. That's their growth habit instead of epiphytic vining. But really beautiful Hoya. This little guy has a peduncle already. That's cool. This beautiful baby. This is my Hoya chasmalagensis. I butcher this name every single time. Chasmalagensis. Hoya T. This was fairly inactive for a long time. I've had it in a couple of locations in my home. Kind of forgot about it for a while at one point because this, as you can see right here, this plant, this part of the plant was the original that I got in the mail, and that's all it was for a very long time until a couple weeks ago, month ago maybe. These two beautiful new leaves popped out. Look at this one. And there is a growth point under there as well. So Hoya tea might be one of my new favorites. Then I have right here my Hoya Dakier that I have been attempting to rehab since I got it well over 6 months ago. But I think this time might be different. Got some new growth happening. These are both the original leaves that the Hoya had when it got to me, and they made it through the challenges we've had. New growth point there too. Beautiful Hoya. So right behind Dakier here, you'll see the only Hoya that I keep in a terrarium. This is Hoya imbricata, and it's such an unusual, quirky, strange Hoya that everything that I've read indicated that it does best in really high humidity. So I did put it in a terrarium setting here. This one, I had thought it was going to be kind of temporary with just some perlite at the bottom that I water, and then sphagnum moss and the Hoya. This green is kind of, I don't know, some people don't really like it. I don't really mind it. It's algae that's growing on the sphagnum, but then there are also little shoots here, which I don't know if that's from the algae or if that's from the sphagnum moss. Anyway, that doesn't really matter. But the Hoya's been really happy. I got this as a cutting. This imbricata was a cutting. It had both of these leaves on it. And then they are kind of clambering Hoyas, or they're shingling Hoyas, I should say, where they kind of resemble, I don't know, like some monstera, where they'll kind of shingle up a surface. So I gave it a piece of cork bark to kind of see if it would do that. It hasn't really done much, but I went in the other day to check, and this little leaf right here, this one, is firmly rooted to that cork bark. And there is a shoot, a vine coming out of that top leaf. So it is doing something now, and it does seem to be enjoying its environment. So I am content to kind of just leave it alone. I water it and fertilize it every once in a while. That is Hoya imbricata. So cool. Moving down here, these are just some potted up cuttings from some of my other plants. So I have a Hoya Crinkles Tinkles here. That is a cultivar. And then I have a couple right here. These are cuttings from a Hoya Crimson Princess, or Hoya Carnosa rubra. New growth on that one. That's pretty cool. And this one's doing well too, this little guy. This is kind of a mystery Hoya. It arrived in an Etsy package that I had ordered a couple other plants from an Etsy seller, and this surprise cutting was in there with my order. And I've never been really sure what it was going to turn into. I think it might be Hoya Rebecca. They usually say you never can really tell what a Hoya actually is if you have any questions about it until it flowers. That's really how they're identified, is by their flower. But this little guy is growing a new leaf, has a new growth point on it. So that's kind of cool. We'll take it. Mystery Hoya. Over here, I have this little potted up Hoya carnosa compacta variegata. This was in an unboxing from Hertz. I see a new leaf on there. Well done. Hadn't been too many changes with that one, but I just saw a leaf on that, so that's pretty cool. I should quick show you, I have my little propagation station right here that does have a few Hoya cuttings in here. This is a couple of cuttings of one of the vines of my larger Hoya Crinkle 8, which I will show you later. But there was one vine when I went to repot the whole plant that wasn't doing as well as the others. So in that case, what I tend to do is take the vine out, I unpot it, and then I put it in water to kind of rehab it. So I've got like 4 or 5 cuttings in here of Crinkle 8, and it's kind of touch and go. Some of them are doing okay, some of them are still a little shrivelly. We'll have to see. And then over here, this is another kind of example of, so I'd gotten this cutting. This is a Hoya spa or species. It's not named yet, or it doesn't have an official botanical name. But it's known as Hoya spa India or Hoya species India. So that is this guy. I got it as a larger cutting that was doing really well. And then went ahead and rotted on me. So I had to kind of take pieces of that original rooted cutting that had successfully rooted and then try again. So I have 2 little cuttings here. Both are rooting really nicely. I'm going to give that some time before I try and pot that up. That is Hoya spa India. Moving down here, this was a cutting that I potted up of one of my Hoya carnosa compacta that didn't quite make it. I was going to have 2, but the second one that I ordered did not make it, except for this little piece of the plant. So, and it's doing all right. It's hanging in there. Not the healthiest, but it's also very small, so we'll see. Over here is my Hoya sigillatus. This was also supposed to be a larger rooted cutting, but kept dying back and rotting on me. But this little piece did manage to root up. That is a new leaf. It had this one leaf on it at its worst. And then I have new growth point right there. I'm excited to see if I can get this one to take off. I'd really, really like to see this one grow. Right here is a recently potted up couple of cuttings of my Hoya elagiorum that I was trying to rehab. Some reason, this one stem, this one leaf has a peduncle that popped out in water while I was rooting it. So that's interesting. We'll see how that guy does. This one looks pretty good. This one looks a little bit rough. We'll just have to wait and see. And I have up here, this is a reverted, it was a Hoya carnosa rubra or a crimson princess, but this is now obviously reverted. I took the cutting off of the reverted stem of that plant, so now I just have a rooted small Hoya carnosa. Pretty cute. Down here, and the last one in this area that I have is this cutting of a Hoya australis. I have a larger Hoya australis that I took this from and rooted it up. It's doing good. All right, over here I have 4 Hoya that are currently in quarantine. They were my most recent order from Unsolicited Plant Talks is the company that I got these from, and all doing pretty well. They arrived in pretty decent shape, so I'm just letting them hang out here for a week to make sure there aren't any pests on them before I kind of get them into my main Hoya space. So the 4 that I got, this large, gorgeous Hoya, this is Hoya incrustata. And from what I can tell, it's a fairly common Hoya in collections. And it's also one of the easiest Hoyas to grow, from what I've heard. And of course, that is subjective, but I love this plant already. It's so pretty. Just these big, very firm leaves. Down here, this little one is Hoya leucardinaceae. I believe that's how you say that. This one, out of the 4 that I got, there's the least amount of information on this one. And from what I can tell, it's fairly uncommon in collections. So if this is, in fact, a Hoya leucardinaceae, I would love to learn more about it. If you guys have any information about this particular Hoya, please hit me up in the comments because I'd really like to know more. That one's doing pretty well too. Then up top here, I have a Hoya limoniaca. Let's see if I can show you. Fairly simple green leaves. You can see some veination in the leaves on this one. And then over here, I have a Hoya coronaria, and this is the pink form. So the flowers, I imagine, will come out pink. Very cute little additions to my collection. All right, we are now in my bedroom, and we'll just have to see how terribly backlit these get. But I've kind of been rearranging in here a little bit. I have a little writing nook right there. That's my closet. But I also put some additional plants over on this side. I've also used to have 2 of these little shelving units against this window. This is a west window. Faces kind of west-southwest. And I kind of split them up. So I have one in my north-facing window, and then one over here. And on this one, because it is a west-facing window, I put some succulents kind of right up against it, and some cacti down there. And then my Hoyas are set kind of farther back, which seems to be really working out. I've been watching this pretty consistently just to make sure the lighting is good for them and they're not getting too much light. And everybody is growing really well in this window. So up top, we'll start up here. This is kind of a recent development. I put a Hoya multiflora, this is my larger one, put this up top to see if it would get some ambient light. It hasn't really been happy in the other locations I've tried to place it. So, if a plant isn't happy, it's recommended you give it a little while to see if it'll acclimate, but if it's really starting to not be happy, you can always move them. And then next shelf down, I have my 2 Hoya carnosa compacta species right here. This one is the variegated one of my wish list plants right there. Got that from Logis. New little leaves on there. And then this is the regular green, which also has new growth. They've kind of exploded this summer, which is great. And then the one I moved, just so I could show you those other 2, this is my Hoya ficii. This one. Got some vines happening there too. A couple good growth points. There too. It's a new one. Might have to trellis this one soon, seeming like that could benefit from a trellis. Next one down, this is my Hoya curtisii. This is one of my pride and joys of my Hoya collection. I love this Hoya so much. In fact, it's kind of hard to see because it's so drapey now, but definitely have some, oop, one of my lights fell. Definitely have some wonderful trailing vines happening on this guy. Love this plant. Okay, so my curtisii, turns out, had somehow attached itself to the grow light on the shelf directly underneath it. So that's what that crash was. Good to know. I might need to get this guy hanging basket soon. Display him to his full potential. So on the bottom shelf here, well, I guess it's the second to bottom, These two little Hoya are doing really well on this shelf. So this is my Hoya rotundiflora. So Hoya rotundiflora, this one has been through the ringer. This one struggled at first. When I first had it, it was two little plants. Both of them declined pretty rapidly, so I had to reroot them in water. And that second time around seems to have taken because we've got new leaves happening, a vine happening. Just seems to be a really happy little plant now, which I'm glad because I really like this one. The leaf shape is very unusual. It's very unique. And over here, this is my Hoya Matilde. And this one, fun story, is already peduncling. It's already getting ready to bloom. So we have this massive peduncle on this vine. This new growth point there, got another new growth point there, and then another peduncle over on this side here. So Matilde is happy, which makes me happy. One more shelf over here, and I have a few of my Discidia over here, which I guess I can tell you about these. So I have the variegated Ruscifolia, or the Million Hearts Discidia, and I also have the variegated String of Nickels Discidia, which I believe is the Nummularioides. Nummularia. And then I have my string of apples, or the Discidia Jerry, or Jerry. And then I do have one lone Hoya. This is one of my two Hoya Cumingianas. And the reason I have two is I originally had two in one pot, so it was technically one plant, but one of the vines started to decline, so I unpotted it and rerooted it in water, and second time around seems to be working out. Then over here, I stuck a random plant stand in this corner to kind of fill it out and hide a power strip down there, but why not put a pubicalix in this little corner? And of course, this one is getting nice and big and bushy. This is my Hoya pubicalix red buttons. And I think pubicalix is one of my favorite types of Hoya. They grow pretty much in any condition you give them. It seems like anyway. They do really well. They're really versatile Hoya. They're not really temperamental. So this guy is right there now. Seems to be doing well underneath a calathea.